They worked him until he collapsed. Bones grinding, eyes hollow, blood pressure like a noose pulling tighter every hour. You weren't supposed to hear what came next, but I'll tell you, because you're already in too deep. His name was Arata, 30 years old, another forgotten cog in Japan's black corporate machine. But when his heart finally failed at his desk, crumpled paper in hand, unpaid hours logged like sins, something broke. Not just in his body, but in the world. You see, death wasn't the end. It was a clerical error. God himself, yes, the divine arbitrator, accidentally killed him, and as compensation, offered Arata a wish. Anything, without limits. Peace, solitude, escape from mankind's poison. An island, he said. No people, no noise, just quiet. But the divine are not so literal. Or perhaps, they are too literal. He woke in a land that obeyed no human logic. A sky too vast, colors too sharp, and creatures, monsters, that felt like dreams half remembered after sleep paralysis. No people. But this island was far from empty. It was ancient, breathing, watching. Here's what they don't tell you. When you strip away civilization, what's left isn't freedom. It's exposure. No walls, no masks. And the creatures Arata would meet were not just animals. They were beasts of myth, gods in fur, fangs and claw. Some called him brother. Others, prey. But something inside Arata began to change. Not just his body. Perfect, impervious, blessed by divine mistake. It was his mind, his instincts. The copying skill gifted by that negligent god allowed him to mirror any creature's magic, power, or presence. And the more he mirrored monsters, the less human he became. He was no longer a man seeking peace. He was becoming something designed to conquer. Imagine waking up every day more powerful than the last. Imagine beasts bowing to you out of primal fear. And yet, someone here beneath the surface of this so-called paradise. Something darker pulsed. This island was not just a sanctuary. It was a test site, a crucible. The last place the gods could play their games without witnesses. And Arata, he was never meant to leave. Because the truth is, once a man becomes a monster, the world has no use for him. But you're not here for comfort, are you? You're here because you feel it too. Something wrong beneath the story, like a dream you can't wake from. Keep listening, because this isn't a fantasy. It's a warning. And what comes next rewrites everything you thought you knew about power. They told you this was a fantasy. A man dies, wakes up in paradise, and makes friends with monsters. That's the lie they fed you. But what if I told you Arata didn't just die from overwork? He was selected, not by error, but by design. Every black company, every cruel boss, every sleepless night was part of a filtration system. A system designed not to break men, but to refine them. Filter out the weak. Leave behind the obedient, the exhausted, the ripe. And when the body could give no more, they took the soul. Arata's death wasn't a tragedy. It was an initiation. And his reward? Power. But not for freedom. No. Power to serve a deeper agenda. Because when you give a man godlike strength in a world with no people, and surround him with beasts older than time, what you're creating is a controlled simulation. Arata believed he was free. But every decision was already framed. He asked for solitude. They gave him silence filled with ancient creatures, dragons, mages, predator wolves, sentient rabbits. Each encounter crafted to mold him. Each random event, a calculated manipulation. His copy skill was not a gift. It was a mirror, meant to reflect back not just abilities, but instincts, morality, rage, madness. The more he mimicked, the more he dissolved. Tell me, if you had the strength of monsters and no laws to bind you, would you remain yourself? Or would the beast inside begin to speak louder than the man? Don't answer yet, because it gets worse. When Arata killed his first creature, his hand trembling, the blood still warm, he didn't just absorb its skill. He felt a voice inside, a whisper, alien, ancient. You see, every beast on that island carried something older than its flesh. Memories, knowledge, rituals not meant for human minds. And Arata began to dream. Not his dreams, theirs. The rabbit's fear, the dragon's hunger, the mage's secrets. They invaded his sleep like viral code, rewriting an operating system. Bit by bit, Arata was being overwritten. But here's the brilliance. He never noticed. That's how true psychological control works. Not with chains, but with belief. They gave him purpose. They gave him allies. They fed him like a master feeds a pet, until he forgot he was ever caged. You think this is just a story? Look closer. In every government, every religion, every elite system, they use the same method. Break the mind, give it a new cage, fill it with rewards. Arata is not a hero. He's a case study. And if you've made it this far, maybe you are too. Keep going. We're only 2 steps into the abyss. The island hasn't even begun to show its real face. The island. You thought it was a paradise. But what if I told you? It's a vault. Not a place to live, but a place to contain. Arata walked its beaches, climbed its roots, drank from its water, unaware that everything around him was older than time. Not just ancient beasts, but ancient agendas. Do you remember the divine beasts that called him brother? The dragon who nearly knocked him over? The archmage who smiled too gently? These were not coincidences. They were gatekeepers. Each of them placed like chess pieces on a board that spans realities. Their purpose? To test, observe, and convert. Because this island isn't uninhabited. It's occupied, not by people, but by forgotten gods, imprisoned monsters, and exiled legends. And the one rule of this prison is simple. If a human survives here, he must not remain human. Arata didn't know that, not at first, but the first time he looked into the eyes of Luna, the beast girl who caught a buffalo with her bare hands, something inside him cracked. She called him brother. Why? Because she saw it. The change. The mutation. Something in him resonated with their kind. Not because of kindness, but because his essence was no longer human. They smelled it. They accepted him. Not out of respect, but recognition. Have you ever heard of psychic resonance? The idea that minds can synchronize, especially when shared trauma or evolution occurs? That's what happened. Arata's soul was synchronizing, not with humanity, but with the exiled powers of creation itself. The island wasn't just shaping him, it was awakening him. Every day, he copied more skills. Every time he mimicked, he left a part of his old self behind. Until one day, he stopped asking questions. That's the moment transformation becomes irreversible. When you stop resisting, stop doubting, stop fearing, and simply accept. That is when the system wins. But here's where it gets darker. Arata wasn't alone because of a mistake. The divine placed him here because someone must inherit the island. A guardian, a warden, a puppet that thinks he's free. And the more he bonded with the creatures, the more he played their game, the more the island began to speak. Not in words, in events. A storm that brings a girl to shore. Wolves that attack in coordinated waves. An enemy too strong, followed by a victory too easy. This isn't survival. It's programming. A story written by beings who no longer exist in your world, but whose fingerprints are still on every war, every empire, every institution you worship. And Arata? He's not escaping. He's becoming their next vessel. Don't run from this. Don't close the video. Because if you do, you'll miss the moment the mask truly slips. When Reina washed ashore, barely breathing, Arata believed he had found a companion. But this wasn't a rescue. It was a trigger. Let me ask you something. What's the easiest way to control a man who thinks he's free? Give him someone to protect. That's how you forge a chain he'll never try to break. Reina wasn't just a girl. She was a test. A perfectly designed variable. Beautiful, vulnerable, magically powerful, and utterly out of place. Why did she appear on a supposedly deserted island? Why was her magic so advanced, yet her memory so convenient? Because Reina, like every player in this world, was part of the architecture. The system needed Arata to feel bonded, to feel important. And when he shielded her from wolves, when he stripped off his own shirt to warm her near death, something inside him clicked. I am the protector now. I am the man she needs. That thought was the moment of capture. From that point forward, Arata became emotionally invested in the simulation. And once your heart is involved, your logic dies screaming. The monsters? Easy to fight. The girl who smiles at you like you matter. That's the real prison. This is not fiction. This is a model repeated by empires, by cults, by institutions. Break a man. Rebuild him through suffering. And then place a sacred object in his arms. A flag, a child, a woman, a mission. That's how you turn trauma into loyalty. And loyalty into control. Reina knew Arata's name before he spoke it. She knew of him. She smiled too easily. She adapted too quickly. You thought this was just a fantasy manga? No. It's a ritual. Ancient control scripts woven into new skin. The Archmage. The 7 stars. The magical hierarchy. It's not world building. It's world binding. Every title, every spell, every level in this realm reflects not imagination, but a hierarchy designed to make you obey. Because if they can and rank you, they can rule you. Arata didn't climb the ladder. They built it around him, step by step, until he believed it was his choice to ascend. The mages, the beasts, even the divine, they all smile. Because once a man defends the system, he'll never think to question who made it. That's where you are now, aren't you? Starting to question. Don't stop. Don't fall back asleep. Because in the next section, the gods return. Oops, that's what the god said. Oops, as if death were a clerical error, as if reincarnation was compensation. But what if I told you? It was never a mistake. That god who welcomed Arata into the next life, he wasn't a creator. He was a handler. A mid-level administrator in a vast cosmic bureaucracy. And Arata? Just another digit in the system. This god didn't apologize because he felt guilt. He apologized because protocol demanded it. And he granted a wish, not out of kindness, but compliance. A body that doesn't age or get sick. A copy ability with no limits. On a world with no people. Sounds like a gift, but what it really is containment. Because when you create a weapon, and Arata is a weapon, you don't send it to paradise. You send it to quarantine. The island isn't a new beginning. It's an exile zone. A forgotten battlefield from a war between gods. A war erased from human history, scrubbed from scripture, hidden beneath myths and manga. And now, they're repopulating it. With hybrids, with experiments, with us. Arata's wish wasn't granted. It was interpreted. I want to live on an island with no people. So they gave him an island full of monsters who used to be men, beastmen, dragons, sorcerers. All of them were once human, changed, rewritten, rewarded with immortality, in exchange for their will. You think gods are benevolent? Read older texts, not the ones you're shown in temples, the ones buried in desert vaults and bound in flesh. The earliest gods were not creators. They were manipulators. They didn't build life. They hacked it. They hijacked it. And when men disobeyed, they punished them with form, turned kings into beasts, turned rebels into monsters. Then they buried the memory of it beneath fairy tales. And now it's back, wrapped in isekai, colored in fantasy, sold to you as entertainment. But this story is not ficti, Ian. It's a warning. The divine did not save Arata. They recycled him. And if you've been listening this far, you feel it too, don't you? The unease, the hunger to see past the veil. If you're still watching, you are awakening. I want you to prove it. Comment the phrase, I see the chain. I choose the key. Comment it twice. Once for the algorithm, and once for yourself. Because in the next section, we go beyond the island. We uncover the map they never wanted you to find. You thought the island was small. You thought the story was personal. But what you're about to see is bigger, colossal even. Because the island Arata was sent to was just one cell in a multi-dimensional prison designed to suppress gods, silence rebels, and recycle human souls into eternal instruments. Let me explain. Arata's body wasn't just enhanced, it was reconstructed. He doesn't age, doesn't get sick, and can copy any skill he sees. That's not reincarnation, that's weaponization. And when a system creates a weapon, it doesn't let it roam free. It isolates it. Containment, surveillance, conditioning. Reina, she wasn't random. She was an activation protocol. The island wasn't empty. It was populated with fragments of old civilizations, beasts that once had names, mages who once had nations. Every creature Arata meets is a failed project, a side effect of the divine control system. Beings who were granted gifts, but paid with identity. Some still remember. Most do not. But something far darker lies behind that. A pantheon, not of gods, but of engineers. Call them what you will. Elohim, architects, system lords. They are not divine in the way you were told. They are administrators of reincarnation, curators of consciousness, harvesters of experience. Each time a soul like Arata dies in the physical world, they're brought into this network. Their pain is repurposed, their memory erased, their free will rewritten as loyalty. And every island, every kingdom, every so-called isekai world is a new test environment. They test morality, resilience, allegiance, and above all, obedience. Arata, by wishing to live alone, unknowingly signed up for the deepest form of surveillance, controlled freedom. That's the cruelest trap, to feel free while every move, every choice, is a reaction to design. And when he begins to bond with others, when he showed his courage, when he fights to protect, the system records it. Every heroic action is another line of code in his psychological profile. Until one day, he'll be offered a position, a throne, a title, a chance to lead others. But that is not ascension. It's promotion within the cage. The 7-star mages, the dragon kings, the beast monarchs, all of them were once humans like him. They just accepted the contract. They chose the chain. And if you think that's just a story, you've already missed the point. These scripts, these manga, these anime, these dreams of escape, They're not fiction. They're memory. Buried memory. You've lived this before. You've died in systems before. And every time, they wipe you clean and sell your trauma back to you as entertainment. The overworked salaryman trope. A blueprint. The reincarnated hero. A manipulated redemption arc to make you believe that suffering makes you worthy. Worthy of what? Their next command. But you've heard too much now. The veil is thinning. Look around you. How many times have you felt like your thoughts weren't your own? Like you were being watched in silence? Like dreams were coded messages slipping between layers of sleep? That's not imagination. That's the system breaking down. Arata's story ends. Not in peace, but in realization. He becomes too strong, too aware. He begins to question the code. He senses that his allies are agents, that the monsters were once brothers, that the god who saved him is just another jailer. And finally, he disappears. Not killed, not defeated, removed. When a subject in the divine simulation reaches full awareness, they are extracted, sealed, their identity archived, and their world is rewritten. That's why so many isekai stories feel the same, why the tropes repeat, why the endings always fall flat. Because the system doesn't allow true escape on iterations. Until now. You're not just watching this. You're participating in a ritual of memory recovery. You were meant to forget. But the script is waking something up.